Hello, my name is Alistair and I am the Bat Mini Painter. I'm slowly working towards my 2000 point Leagues of Votann, army. So today we're going to do a couple of Einhyr Hearthguard. I kind of want to pronounce all the names with an Icelandic accent. Um, yeah, there's something Icelandic over the names. Anywho, so I will start out with a surface primer for the airbrush, because it's cheaper. You can use Corax White for Citadel. It's just that this is basically paying £10 to paint 250 models and not just 60. Then again a layer of Sons of Horus, which is extremely thin layer paint, so that thing went loose, so glue. But it will need a couple of layers. Afterwards the Coelia green shade, and with shade I just slap it on. There's like the first layer of shade, there's no reason for precision or wasting time on that. It needs to go all over the place anyway. I try to be careful around pooling, but that's pretty much it. And then some Ulthuan, that color, gray for the white parts, and that is a stripe on his shoulder and his helmet. And that also needs a couple of layers for decent coverage. And bright bronze from Vallejo for all the little bronze parts on his armor, all the decorations. It's you can be really precise with this, and I try to not fill up the gaps, to keep some shade in there, but I'm not that careful. I'm going to shade it later with Reichland Flesh Shade, and that will add the depth and shadows that I need. Then Abaddon Black, and that is for the gun, for selected hoses, and the black parts. I need to get myself a drill so I can make the guns look a little bit better, because they look kind of flat. Generally, in this case, I'm just following the box art. And as you can see, I'm not overly... that's good camera work again. I'm sorry for that. That's, I'm trying to get better, you know. It's a process. I hope you can bear with me. Anywho, I'm not overly careful yet, because many of the parts that I should be careful about I haven't painted yet, and that's kind of my tactic when I do these kind of bulk paint, is to make sure that I do all the stuff that I don't have to be careful about as early as possible, or do it in an order so I don't have to be overly careful. Now here's a little bit of precision work needed. Corpus Black for the leathery, flexible parts on the armor. There's not a lot of it, but there's a little, and it kind of it makes a difference to spend the extra 2 seconds on painting that. And afterwards I go back with the Sons of Horus, just to freshen up the places that has been darkened just a little bit too much on his armor by the shade. Also to hide pooling that wasn't intended. Some pooling I think add to the aesthetics, but not in the middle of flat areas. That just it looks dumb and sloppy. So yeah, back with Sons of Horus to clean up a little bit. And Let Belcher, our favorite paint. I do that for his shoulder thingamabob, and for all the nuts and bolts around on his armor, and also for the visor of his helmet. And now we're reaching a point where we have to be a little bit careful. I love lead belcher, but it's a really good paint for killing brushes. Like, if you don't clean it, extremely careful. It will just... Oh yeah, also the spiny part. But it will just murder brushes. So remember to clean your brush thoroughly after using any of Citadel's metallic paints. I don't know if they use especially sharp flakes or what the story is, but they do kill brushes fairly fast. And next I do some flash gets yellow, and I thinned it down quite a bit to get a glow effect on the chest light. So I slap it on, and then I take a Q-tip or a piece of toilet paper. I don't know what it's called in English actually, but kitchen roll in Danish, køkkenrulle, anywho. And you get this kind of glowy effect thing. Next, Troll Slayer Orange for the sword. And this one needs a lot of layers in order to get a decent and even coverage. Now it's time to shade the metallic parts. So non-oil, and this is my hand, non-oil, and I just give it a decent layer, because I know later that I'm going to come in with the Stormhost Silver and do some highlighting. So it's okay to darken it down quite a bit. It gives a nice contrast in my opinion, anyway. Just have to be a little extra careful around the white parts, because non-oil is a fairly high pigmented wash, so it will stain easily. And we do the Reichland flesh shade for all the bronze parts. And I found a fine detail brush. It doesn't hold a lot of shades, but that's okay. I don't want to drown these little emblems or decorations in the shade. I just want to make sure that it runs into the recesses to add some shadow. And as I said before, Stormhost Silver for a bit of highlighting on all the lead belcher, the metal parts. Trying to not cover up too much detail, adding layer per layer, on layer on layer on layer, but just basically slamming it on where I think the light would hit, so that part of the gun. Then a little bit of Incubi Darkness, and this was more an experiment to see how that would actually look if I put it on the gun, onto the highlight worthy areas. Oh, the gun, the black parts. It has a decent contrast to Abaddon Black, I think. So it can be used for highlighting and also just adding a little more detail to otherwise kind of boring black. So I just try to touch it lightly. It will dull down as it dries. So, oh, and more highlights. Scar Snick Green, just for the edges. I'm not going to do all the edges like the boxwork would suggest that you do. I will select some focus points and do it there. And that's because I have 10 models and 2 children, so limited time. Now it's time for some Scarlet Blood for the sword, to add some gradient or variation. I did try another way of doing gradients on the Berserkers that didn't work that well in my opinion. I might actually go back and redo that at some point, but I found that just carefully adding a little bit of red helps. And cold white from Vallejo to highlight the white parts a little bit. I highly recommend using cold white instead of something like white scar. That is just an awful paint that will break apart in the bottle for no apparent reason. So yeah, not a huge fan of Citadel's white colors. They tend to clump up. And finally, just adding some texture for the base. And that's basically it. I have this idea that my army is from an outmined and broken down volcanic world. Like they have overminded and it's slowly starting to break apart. So that's the theme I'm going for with my bases. So I use some crackling texture. I think it's called Moldout something from Citadel. You can use anything. And then I paint the bases orange, and the end result is something like this. Which I have to be honest, it could have been a lot worse. So I still need to work on my camera work, but it's decent. It's getting better. Getting better and decent is not quite the same thing. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, click notify, all that good stuff. And thank you for your time. Bye.